Hi, book club members. I'm Jen,
And I'm Carrie.
and this is Warhammer 40k Book Club, where we read from a crag. This is episode number 136, and our book is Dominion Genesis by Jonathan D. Beer. It tells the story of a tech priest on a crisis of faith after the destruction of Griffon 4. We posted several questions on our website, WH40bookclub.com, and we encourage participation in our conversations via YouTube, our site, or Encrypted Vox channel. Spoiler warning. If you haven't yet read this book, definitely check it out before listening to this episode, as we're going to be discussing it from start to finish in great detail. And I guarantee you, you don't see the ending of this book coming. So,
That's true.
buyer beware here on this one. With that, let's dive in. Carrie, as always, did you like the book?
I did not.
Oh man,
This was torture. This whole book was torture for me.
we're going to unpack that tonight. We're going to sync up and have some cross team fungibility to unpack this.
You know
I don't
what?
why I just
That kind of a team meeting was more entertaining than this book. I might have paid attention a little bit more because I was bored.
All right, we're getting off early. It's gonna be a spicy one, guys.
But don't throw me under the bus here. You didn't like it much either.
Oh God, I have a lot of mixed feelings on this book. I liked a lot of the concepts.
I liked when it ended.
I liked that it didn't steal my lunch money.
Yes, it's true. It did not beat me up.
I liked a lot of the concepts. I didn't love the execution, if that makes sense. Like there were some things that I was like, that's kind of interesting. And like, if I were to summarize this book, it's kind of interesting. But man, that ending. Oh man, that ending. I don't know if anybody remembers. Years ago, there was a game called Rage that came out. It was like John Carmack's return to glory, right? From the id days. And
I know where this is going.
yeah, that game was so good until the end, and then it just fell off a cliff because they were like, "Screw it, we'll sell DLC." They ended up not because people were so angry about the ending of that game, and my friend Brian Shea, shout out to Shea out there, was like, "Don't listen to any review of anybody who didn't finish this game. If somebody gave this above a 7, they didn't finish it." Fact, my friends. It's giving rage. That was my first thought when I got to the end. I was like, "Oh wow, that was just done now, are we?" Yeah, there's so much. What part stood out
but I
to
can't
you?
even say this was a fun journey until the end drove off a cliff. This wasn't Thelma and Louise where it was entertaining and then they drove off a cliff. I was just bored. The only things I enjoyed were the humans.
Yeah.
I liked Edgar's story. I particularly liked his sacristan Ormond. Probably my favorite scene is when he's pulled out, of another armiger, and he's just like, I'm nothing anymore. And Ormond like grabs him, is just like, you can't do this again. Do not, give in to despair. That's such a great, stop being this privileged kid who just got, your toys are broken, so you're done. Like you did so much more than you ever could have. Because actually that scene where he is fighting the Aeldari mech was an amazing scene.
Oh, it was so well written. So this was one of the concepts that I actually did like the execution. So we always, you and I have both struggled with the night houses, right? We've always struggled with that.
Because they're weird.
They're weird and they're hoity-toity, and as you said, they're privileged and they're spoiled, and this idea of nothing personal, we're just better than you. Like in the face of his despair, like that was when I knew that I was going to be a little invested in this. Is when he like yells at Ormond and he sends him off, right? And she comes back and she's like, "Yeah, the next time you're hungry, go get your own food.
Right.
Go do something for yourself." Oh man, this guy's going to actually have a good journey. And he did. And I really was invested in watching him break out of that depression, despair mold, right? And okay, no, you know what? I am useful. I have a purpose. I can rise to become something better.
Mm-hmm.
My life didn't end just because my armature did. I mean, I get it. Duty. Anyways,
I
if you
also
would have
liked
told me at the end of the book that I was going to like him, I would not have believed you.
I also liked Belyev a lot. Like the regicide scene was a great scene.
That scene was excellent for a variety of reasons. I don't know why, but I was immediately, as soon as she comes back over and is like, "You want to have a drink?" and everyone disappears. I was like, "Huh, okay." There's going to be a cute little romance, and this is going to make up for my frustration with other parts of this book.
And that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did
yeah, that's
see
about.
I did see on Goodreads, because as I was putting in my lowly score and I saw that I was very much alone, I saw one review that was like, this was so great. It was light. It reminded me a lot. It was a lot of callbacks to Moby Dick in terms of obsession. I was like, you know what? You know what? I see your point there. 100%. There was a lot. Like she was like Captain Ahab. And in all honesty, when they survived the Eldari planet, and she's like, well, we're going to go on. And I think it was Ron Bow was like, it's either Ron Bow or Yule or like, what are you doing? Like, we barely got out of here with our lives and you want to go back? She's like, there's only one way forward. It really reminded me of the scene in Moby Dick where the Pequod, terrible name for a boat, by the way, the Pequod runs into another ship that had a run in with Moby Dick, and where Ahab lost his leg, this captain had lost his arm. And so they're chit-chatting, and he's like, well, I'm still going to go after Moby Dick. And the other captain's like, isn't one bone enough? And that was actually the first thing I thought when this happened. I was like, yes, like, so when someone said Moby Dick, I'm like, yes, 100%. However, she gets away with it. At least Moby Dick went down with his obsession, and she gets to get away with it. And why does she get to get away with it? Because, you know, Eldari tech, that's fine. It's Xenos tech, but that's fine. That's fine. Oh, it's Necron. Oh, well, now that's a step too far. Wait, why? Why is one Xenos tech okay and the other is not? It's all technically heresy, lady. It was just so weird.
We're gonna talk so much about the Adeptus Mechanicus in general with this, but let's dive into Sharax. Did you like her as a main character?
Did not.
I did not either.
She should have died. Like, I even told Sean, like, halfway through the book, I was just like, there's only one way that I'll like the ending of this book, and that's if she dies. That her obsession brings about her downfall. Because it should.
It's an interesting concept because it's not just obsession. The other thing that's so interesting about this is that this is a woman who is clearly in a crisis of faith. Her faith gets shook. She is shooketh. No longer speaking like a Gen Zer. Her fate gets shaken, and she can't really recover from that, right? Like, it's and I don't mean this to sound like, oh my god, like, who hasn't had their faith shaken, really? But like, it's that type of like character, like, weakness of nope. I'm gonna throw myself into this obsession and I'm gonna blind myself to everything else, and I'm just gonna become this selfish person because I am experiencing. Because like, that was one of the things that I will tell you right now, that opening intro when it's all told through her first person point of view, I was utterly sold on this book. And then it immediately switches away from her first person point of view, and I was like, oh. Honey, do you think you were the only person who watched Griffon 4 die? Do you think you were the only person who called that world home? Do you think you were the only survivor who had survivor's guilt?
What?
Do you think you were the only person who looked at that and wrung your hands and asked, how do we recover from this?
And that same thing, though, she distinctly says, we had to get the knowledge because that's more important than the people. And right there, I'm like, I have no use for you. You're there screaming about, oh my God, my world, my world. You don't give it, but you want the knowledge, not the people who made the knowledge.
She doesn't care about the people. She cared about the forges, the knowledge, and honestly, I think the concept of Griffon for, right? Like, oh my God, how could we lose this? Like, how could we lose this thing?
That happens to other people's
And
planets, not mine.
right, exactly. That happens like the not important people, not mine.
It happens to the Agra worlds. Nobody cares about
I'm
those.
I'm gonna say this somewhat ironically because I know she is quite literally this, but she has hardcore main character syndrome. Like, and I understand she's the main character of this, but like, do you never? And the example of this, and this is one of those things I don't like. I call this Admiral Holdo syndrome. The fact that she cuts herself off from the noosphere. And everyone even mentions it. They're just like, do you know how inefficient this makes us? Because she can't communicate. So she forces everyone else to kind of guess and infer what she's thinking, and everybody else to conform to her method of communication now. Everybody else is still in perfect communion. And look, I'm not necessarily saying that I'm a big fan of the way that they communicate in the hive mind, right? But it would be like if like your sister or your mother was like, you know what? I'm just not using a telephone anymore. I've decided that I am not using a telephone anymore. If you want something from me, send me a letter. Madam. Like, oh my God. And this is not necessarily, it's portrayed that nobody else understands her pain. It's not necessarily portrayed, like people kind of make comments about how selfish she's being, but I don't ever feel
She's like that teenager.
weird. She's very spoiled.
You don't understand, like every teenager to their parents, you don't understand my pain because my pain is unique. You don't get it because, you know, we were never
Right.
teenagers, right? We were born adults.
I came into existence at 27. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So
exactly. I got to miss the teenage years, or my teenage years were just so charmed.
And it's not only that, but only she has the right way, right?
Oh, yes.
And she, even though they're all like, "Oh, we don't know about this archaeotech. We probably need to examine it." She's like, "No, I am right. I know what I'm doing. It's perfectly safe." I got a lot of Ariman vibes.
Oh, very hardcore Armin vibes with her complete lack of real concern. Like, she loses people. They barely survive the Eldari planet. And she's just like, this is fine because we're going forward with this knowledge. And are you kidding me, hun? Like, are you kidding? The other thing about her that I really struggled with is she kind of admits, right, that she's like, I've forsaken everything. I need this to work.
Right.
Okay, that's fair. I get it, right? You've made a
I gotta
bad
double
decision.
down at this point.
It's the sunk cost fallacy at this point.
Right.
Like, which the only thing, so going back to something you said earlier about she doesn't get punished, I mean, she's going to have to answer for all of this, right? Because sure enough, in a shock to exactly no one, the dangerous unknown xenotech turns out to be like dangerous and stuff and not the cure to everything they thought it was going to be. Turns out this is not, I don't, what? I should have prepared the fainting couches. When they pulled off like the same scene from Wrath of Khan with the initial reveal of the Genesis, and they called it Genesis, I was like, yes, I too have seen Wrath of Khan. I was like, oh boy, here we go. I did like at least that they were like, I mean, you know, things that seem too good to be true probably are too good to be true. The Warhammer 40k universe, man, I liked that. That's the one thing that I did like for her.
Yeah,
so she kind of,
and the
but
crazy
not that
thing
we
is,
get
though,
to see.
so they get to the Eldari planet because they don't know it's Eldari, and they look around, they realize it's Eldari, and like she immediately is just like, oh crap.
What have I done?
Yeah. And instead of admitting, I've made a huge mistake, we need to go. We can't do anything with this. No. We got to go find it. Even though everyone's like, this is heresy, but I need this.
She becomes, well, and she basically says it to them, right?
Yeah.
I think she says it to Laterix, where she's like, if it regenerates our world, who cares?
Right.
Oh, ends justify the means, do they, darling?
Which
Especially
is
since
funny
you don't...
because, like in the Dark Imperium novels, that's one thing that Robbie Bobby talked about, that he had issues with the Mechanicus, that they weren't destroying these ships, that they were like studying it for their own. He's like, no, that's heresy. And they're like, okay, fine.
That's heresy, Carl. Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about them. Let's jump ahead a question here and talk about the Mechanicus. Um,
Do I have to?
the Mechanicus. Well,
No.
yes, because they're so logical, so calculating,
Mm-hmm.
so above human concerns,
Mm-hmm.
and yet not even a little bit. Like, was I reading? And
Mechanicus are
I
some of
actually,
the pettiest
oh
of
my God,
people.
it's so conniving, so conniving. Like, and okay, keep in mind, I'm going to say this. I did enjoy this. I enjoy this about them because it's a nice level of non-self-awareness that they have, right? Because they're very calculating and they're very logical. Obviously, they remove all emotion from things. However, they will backstab a bitch to get their finding names on this technology, right? Like everybody wants to. I loved when he was presenting to the conclave of what she found, and he couches it in a way that if they approve, bully for him. But if they disapprove, he can be like, yeah, I know, right? The politicking
I,
in
d-
this book.
I did enjoy that a little bit because that was told from Laterix's point of view. And that was kind of fun. That was kind of fun because you don't really realize exactly how conniving he is until like
Oh, yeah.
you get an idea. It's like, oh, he knows how to play the game, but you don't realize like really how much, how conniving the guy is until near the end. But yeah, but that was just, he's like, oh, well, that's interesting. Well, that's interesting how he phrased it there, you know? And then
His little commentary.
like his shock of like where the shard was found. He's like, she didn't tell me that. Like, that's not good.
Oopsie poopsie. Did you
that,
like
that
in
place, that's like, I know it's forbidden, but does it have to be?
like, well, and I did. This is the other thing that I liked it too, is that because of all of the politics, right? All of them should have been like, I mean, you're on your own, girl, when she leaves. But they go with her because what if she finds something awesome? And yeah,
Well,
in
they
for a
couldn't really
penny, in for
leave
a
the ship
pound,
though.
right?
She was like determined to go. Like, she basically was kidnapping them.
Oh, pretty much. But they could have been like, nope, we're taking over. We're like they could have done something, but instead they're just kind of like, I don't know, let's see how this plays out.
I
Oh,
guess.
really? Really, guys? It did you like any of the other AdMech characters in this book though?
I liked Ron Bow,
I loved Ronbo.
but she was like the voice of reason. Um,
She was probably the most human of them.
yeah,
Because you got the impression that she genuinely cared for Sharax as a person,
right,
not just as her, her leader.
right. And I did like Laterix because he made me laugh until the end.
Because of how petty he was.
Well, he was just funny, like, when he was, bantering words with Lauren, who's just talk about the pettiest of petty little
Oh my
men.
God.
That was entertaining, and his support. And what I really liked him, honestly, was when they survived the Eldari ambush and they think that there's no hope. And he's like, we have to get moving. And she's like, for what end? He's like, to survive. She's like, but why? He's like, oh my God, shut up, get up. We need to move. We need to go try to survive. And he kind of pulled her out of, because again, she's thinking of herself.
Oh, always eternally thinking of herself.
And like even the Skitarii couldn't keep up and they were breaking down. Like Zalata had to go to her and be like, we can't keep up at this pace. Well, then leave him. No, we're not leaving him.
We're not leaving them.
We'll leave your weapons. I loved Zalata's response to leaving the weapons. But it's just, that was the thing that drove me the craziest about her, was that she was Sharax, not Zlata, Sharax, was that she was always thinking of herself. She was never
Yes.
thinking of anybody else. And even though we learned at the end that Laterix really wasn't thinking of anybody else either, at least he put on the appearance of trying to think of other people. And at least also in that moment, he didn't be like, well, we'll just leave them all behind. Like even he was trying to tell her, like, no, we all need to go. We need strength in numbers. And most of that was probably survival, right? If they get ambushed
I was
again.
gonna say it was very practical.
Well, exactly. But
Okay.
But
So
still,
let's compare those two things, right? He being practical. We need these other people, right? Safety in numbers. We're going to need somebody to kill these things, right? Like somebody needs to keep me safe.
Oh my God, the Groks. All I could think of was Jurassic Park Lost World of the tall grass with the velociraptors. The only good scene in that whole movie.
Oh my God. I do love the Raptors. I hate like all of those movies after the original one until
Well,
the
yes.
Raptors show up, and then I'm like, oh my God, this movie's excellent. And then the Raptors are gone, and I'm like, this movie sucks.
Yeah, Lost World is good when the Raptors showed up because they're like, stay out of the tall grass, because that was obviously Steven Spielberg was like, I did Jaws. Remember when I did Jaws and how cool that was? And then he had the girl do the uneven
No.
bars kick through the window.
We don't talk about that. I want everyone to know that every now and then, like I'll be surfing through something and like that movie will pop up and there'll be like a GIF of her doing the uneven bars thing, and it just flames
On the
on the side of my face. Heavy breathing. There are a few movies that I just think about them and I'm like, this sucked so bad.
I think it's like the second Lost World reference I've made on podcasts. Shit. I think I did last week too.
I'm starting to think you kind of low key have affinity for this.
I think I need to go like reflect on myself.
That's right. Contemplate on the tree of woe.
Yes.
There is a good classic movie. Anyways, yes. I don't even remember where I was going with this. He had some self-preservation, and so it was portraying his thinking about other people, but at least he was practical and he was being pragmatic. We need these other people. Shirax would have let all of them die because she's thinking about herself and what she needs and what she wants. I didn't get any sense of leadership on her or any sense of, I can understand what's going on around me. Like, you know, some sort of like awareness, spatial awareness. I don't know.
No, it was all about her. Her whole world was gone. Her ship is gone. What more is there? I don't know. Your life?
Right. Well,
other people here that would like to live too? Like, oh God, it does. She drove me insane.
She drove me insane as well. And again, I wanted to like her. I went into this book really wanting to like her because, again, from that beginning, I was like, wow, an AdMech going through a crisis of faith. Now, that's something we haven't seen before, and that's very interesting. The execution of that, I did not enjoy. And the problem that I have with it is that I get the impression I'm supposed to like her. And I
feel like, and I said this to you via text as well, that we're supposed to like these women that are overly emotional and irrational, like the Queen in Iron Kingdom. I can't remember her name, but the main chick in Demon Breaker, and now this is like these women that are overly emotional and selfish and thinking of themselves, and we're supposed to like them. Which, like, as your response to me was, switch genders on them, make them men, and what would we say about them? They're selfish assholes.
Yes. That is the problem that I have with this. And I'm trying not to go on a feminist rant here, but feminist literary theory here, when people take these traits that we would call toxic masculinity or selfish assholes in a male character and they put it onto a female character and they're like, oh man, isn't she super strong and inspiring? No, she's infuriating. She is absolutely infuriating. And it's so, the biggest word I can use here is selfishness. Because again, you put it best. Her world is dead. Nobody else lived on Griffon 4. It was just her, right? Her ship is gone. Nobody else was on that ship. That was her ship, on her alone. It just, and I'm not saying that doesn't happen, and I'm not saying I don't understand that, again, as part of her crisis of faith.
No, but that's not a likable character. And
right.
And I probably wouldn't have thought anything of it if I haven't seen this in 3 books where the protagonist was female. Like the Iron Kingdom, it was her daughter. How dare they do this to her daughter? Forget everybody else's daughter who dies in the Imperium. It's hers. She's sad.
How many people did she get killed
So I'm
because
going
she
to
felt
kill
that
a
her daughter was disrespected?
custodes because I'm sad. I'm going to doom my world because of my daughter. Okay. And then Demon Breaker. Because I don't get my ambition, I'm going to pout and throw a fit.
And get a bunch of people killed.
Yes. So,
again, this just...
I'm sorry. Strong women are not selfish bitches. And it's one thing. And the thing is that drives me crazy is that it's one thing if they learn from their mistakes, right? The Queen in Iron Kingdom never learned. She died not learning. Demon Breaker, she was rewarded.
She gets rewarded by being labeled the Demon Breaker. And this lady...
And this, like, she's not really rewarded, but she gets to survive. Whereas other people died. Better people than her.
Better people than her die.
Zlata.
Now, she does realize her mistake at the end, right? But it's like, wow. The thing about that I find
frustrating.
Only when the
Necrons showed up. That was it.
Pretty much. Well, the giant warp spider was definitely a surprise.
Well, I mean, it's like, you know, seeing the giant warp spider, I'm sorry, wouldn't that make you be like, oh, we shouldn't do anything? But no, she has to go investigate. Selfish.
Well, and it was stubbornness. Like, I only buy you gotta go check so much. And look, I understand the Imperium is its own worst enemy, especially the AdMech. They are definitely their own worst enemy, right? Constantly, we can't, like, I loved the commentary. I think it was from Laterix. I loved the commentary where he was just like, oh yeah, like, we spend decades arguing about a slight variation from standard patterns, right? They're very risk adverse and they're very traditional. And I understand that would be chafing, and I get it. I mean, that's kind of most of the stories about the AdMech are them being like, hear me out. What if? So I get that to a point. But she keeps going and going. And again, the second that we're going to talk about the warp spider in a second, let's talk about the Eldari. Were they good antagonists to this story? Did you like them?
Meh. I mean, when the first, like, I think it was called like an interlude or intermission, when it happened, it's just like, oh yes, we were doing this all along. Like, finally they're moving out so I can go get this shard back that's missing. I was like, yeah, this is 100% totally in the Eldari's MO. Now, do I believe his crap about leading the Tyranids there? Because I'm like, I don't know how you lead the Tyranids anywhere, but, you know, if maybe you just wanted to say that just for funsies. I don't know.
It's possible that in his arrogance, they thought they did.
Maybe.
It's entirely possible that he's like, oh yes, we were behind that all along. Were you?
I mean,
were you?
In like many ways, like, I understand the Eldari's angst about humanity, because I guess I'm of the opinion, because they're like, oh, well, they should all go. Well, why can't you guys, like, I don't know, work together, like with the good Eldari, not the Drukhari, but the other Eldari. Like, I don't know why you guys can't share things. No, we can't share. All right, fine, whatever. And their level of pettiness. What I found interesting was that he's like, oh, this was a gift from our gods. And I found that interesting at the outset. I was like, well, that's weird. I don't know what gods, but I'm really curious. And you find out it's really from the Necrons, the old enemy. So I'm like, so probably it's actually not even the Necrons. It's probably the Catan. You know, it kind of remind me like a little bit of Mass Effect, right? We found these mass relays. We just assumed that the Protheans made them. Well, no, it turns out the Reapers made them to entice the Protheans to start exploring so then they could wipe them out later. They have really bad planning. It's a really weird plan, but
BioWare does that a lot. The parallel that I drew, because you're more into Mass Effect than I am, I drew the Dragon Age parallel of, remember when you discover the Elven gods? Gods. Yes. They were just super powerful magisters.
Right.
Right? They weren't gods. But I like that even the Eldari, even the fucking Eldari and all of their arrogance, and we're this old race, and we're so much smarter than the Monkey, even they don't really understand their history.
Right.
Like, even they have their own bullshit, right? Oh, it's from our gods. Is it? Yes. Or the Necrons, one of the two. I don't know.
Like he even admits, he's like, yes, it's actually creation of the old enemy. I'm like, oh my, yeah,
The lies you tell yourself.
yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And
Yeah.
just when it came out that it was, because honestly, my first thought with the tree, I was like, if it was Wraithbone, I've been like, yes, definitely Eldar. But the fact that it was like a metal tree that grew vegetation, I was like, this is some weird Necron. This is not Eldari. So when they landed on the planet, I was expecting it to be Necron, even though I knew the Eldar was following them. But anyway, so just for it to come full circle that it is Necron, I was like, well, of course, that makes the most sense.
Right. It seems like something that they would have, right? It actually seems very on brand for the Catan, even maybe. Um,
The
but
Great
it seems
Deceiver.
the great. Still
Look
one
at
of the
these
best
things that
magic
I
tricks.
can make for you. Yes. Come through the portal and change and become, Necrons instead of Necrontyr. Now you can live forever. Oh, right. But you've lost all feeling. Cool. Enjoy
What I told you was true
from
from
a
a
certain
certain
point
point
of
of
view.
view.
Mhm.
Um, I do love that type of trickster shit. Anyways, the I don't know. I had a similar thought where they're just like, what could have created this? Oh yeah, this is going to be some sort of ancient Necron adjacent, or something along those lines. I knew it wasn't Eldari. As soon as he's just like, this is ours, I'm like, is it though? Is it yours because you stole it first?
Mhm.
Like, this is gonna be like an apples versus Windows thing, um, versus Xerox. Um, I I liked. It was hard. I just don't like the Eldari. I just don't. The characters, like he was so arrogant and so condescending the whole time, right? And you're just like, dude, the monkey had it from you. Like, I don't know what to say here. You guys show up and are just like, oh, blah blah blah, these weaklings, and yeah, well, they sure as shit bamboozled you, didn't they? I don't know. They were there. They were antagonistic, but I kind of was with you on that. Just kind of, meh. All right. I mean, Laterix ended up being more,
He was more the bad
I
guy
guess,
than all of them.
right. Yeah, I guess more a little more compelling as a quote unquote villain. It's hard to even. I don't know. What would you describe him as? Is he a villain?
No, he's more of a crap. What's the word? Racing through my brain all these literary terms that I've forgotten. It's been a spell since I was in grad school. Let's see. He's not really a villain or a true antagonist. Gosh, the words it's gonna escape me, but he's, you know what? He's a true neutral.
He is kind of. I really felt that he just going back to Regicide. He was just playing the game a little better than she was,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
A little better than all of them. He was just. He was not necessarily an antagonist or a villain so much as a very skilled opponent.
I like that. Yeah.
Not a good dude. Not a good dude at all. But also, like, you didn't get the impression that he set out. I mean, to be fair, he did. Sherax did more damage on her own, right? Um, it's just the pettiness of the AdMech. Never ceases to amaze me. And it's one of the reasons I actually really like them. Because, they put on this veneer of we're just above all of that. Except for when we are totally not. Let me ask you this. Was a giant warp spider on your bingo card for 2024?
Is a giant warp spider ever on my bingo card?
Oh my god. I gotta say, now on one hand, I got to that and I was like, oh, like the ending to It? Yay!
Hey, at least they didn't have to do a stupid ritual.
Yeah.
Although
Or
we don't know what they did to it. We have no.
to be fair, we have no idea what happened before we got there.
No,
Before our
I mean,
heroes
we have
got
no
there.
idea how they really destroyed it.
That's true. But the second that they got there, I was like, okay, now we just turn around. Like, are we gonna do a oh hell no? No, we're not. We're going forward. Okay, cool. Let's go investigate the warp spider. I will say that is something, and maybe it's because I'm not as familiar with the Eldari, and I don't go too much into their lore. Maybe that's something that other people who really are more familiar with it were like, oh yeah, this can happen sometimes.
No, honestly, honestly, when they said it was like they said it was an arachnid like, I was like, oh, this is Necron. Just because I was thinking of like they're scarabs, because they even talked about the scarabs and they talked about how they were arachnid like. Like yes, they. Yeah, that's definitely. And then when they talked about the ships that were in the shape of the crescent moon, like Jesus, like, do you guys not study your Xenos? Because
Yeah. Well, again, it goes back to that whole thing that for being as smart as everybody is in this universe, they're also very, very not. Um, I don't know. Was it satisfying?
no, I mean,
I
oh my God. So she's like, we have to go, but we have to destroy this thing. I have no idea how. Well, I have a plan for that. I think that could work. Which
oh
is,
man.
which is, which is what? And then they just leave and they destroy it. And okay,
Okay, well, let's get into that really quickly here, and then we'll come back to the spider because I really do want to talk about that. But did it feel a little rushed? Maybe
it's almost like he hit a word count. It was like, oh crap, I can't.
it kind of felt that way.
But honestly,
Like,
that's how the end of it felt too. It just
oh
destroyed the
yes,
giant spider by being mean to it and stuff and whatever, and that was it. So it's like, okay,
yeah.
did y'all throw rocks at it? Like what?
Right, and tell it that you're not scared of it anymore. Um, and then squirt your inhaler on it. Battery acid. Um, I cannot explain to you as a teenager reading it, staying up too late underneath my covers because it was past curfew with my flashlight, reading it, getting to the giant spider, waking up my roommate, going, "What?" And then I made her read the book too so that she could get to that section. And sure enough, she had almost done the same thing. She got to it and was like, "Are you kidding me?" Because I had already traumatized everybody with The Shining and Pet Sematary. So they were, willing to go along. That's what happens when you're in boarding school. Um, I felt that same disappointment when they got there and it was a giant spider. I was like, well, this is not going to go anywhere compelling. And I will say from Goodreads and our Discord, I already knew that the ending was going to be disappointing. Like I kind of knew that, but I didn't really know how it was going to be. And the second that they started describing it looking like a giant arachnid, I was like, oh my God. Yeah, here we go. This is not.
All right, here's my hot sports opinion on this. The
Oh
ending to
boy.
Halo 2 was more satisfying.
Ooh. Damn. I wanted to match it and to be like, yeah, I guess you could say that the ending of Rage was no, it was about the same. At least you knew there was going to be a sequel. I don't know. I the two things that I complained about was they got to this point and you're like, oh, well, I can see how many pages are left, how much is left in this book. This isn't going to give me anything satisfying. There was that. And then the fact that she's basically like, she spends the whole book with Eeyore, right? Lost my homeworld. Nothing matters. We have to rebuild. And then the second, to this ending, seen the warp spider, they've seen the Necrons, Lutorix does his thing. Then she's like, oh, I guess that never really was our solution anyways. Let's we build the homeworld.
But remember, we're builders. Seriously?
Are you kidding me right now?
Like,
in this 2024.
And actually, when they were like lamenting this, I was like, you should have let the Inquisitor drop the virus bombs so that you have a barren rock. And I know you guys have terraforming technology and start over. Like, this isn't the end of the world. I mean, you guys won't do this for any other world out there. I mean, heaven forbid. But
God, no, their world matters. I mean, really, we talk about how selfish she is, but is she any more or less selfish than any other member of the Adeptus Mechanicus?
no,
I mean, to be fair.
no, but
Oh my God. How could I even? Okay. I can't. You haven't played Space Marine 2 yet, so never mind. That's why. I was like, why haven't I made any parallels here? That's why. Never mind. Moving on. If you know, you know. She's no more or less selfish than any other tech priest or the Adeptus Mechanicus. I think they just kind of breed them that way. And then they hide behind this cloak of, for the greater good. And look at all the stuff that we're doing and all this knowledge and how much we improve people's lives. And totally. Rant. Sorry.
I mean, no, so I don't know, because Yule was the true leader. He helped the evacuation. He's like, okay, we can do a conclave. Like, I'll let you look into this. And he's just like, well, I don't know about this. We need to get more people involved. Yes, the way he presented it, was it was selfish and politicking. But at the same time, he kept the ship alive, the Peregrinus. He did what he could to help the ship. He was doing everything he could so that they could all survive. You can say that's partly selfish, that's selfish on him as well. But at the same time, he totally could have given up. He could have left them behind.
Oh, absolutely. I feel the same way when people are like, when billionaires make donations to charities and people are like, oh, it doesn't matter. They're just doing it for the tax write-off. I don't care why.
They're still donating the money. So
you're still donating the money, right?
Yeah.
Same thing. Like, he didn't have to be altruistic to lead the evacuation. Those people are getting on that ship with their lives. They don't really care why.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that one doesn't bother me as much. Yes, sorry, continue.
No, just like, of all of them, he was the least selfish of the leaders.
Right.
Because he's a true leader. That's why he's still the mentor. She hasn't left his wing yet, because he still understands strategy, research, and he doesn't, and he was not letting his grief or his emotions that they're so proud of not having affect him. No, he wasn't happy when she just bolted. But at the same time, he's just like, well, what's the point in throwing a shit fit right now, right? We're here. Let's just see. Let us see where this goes. So, she kind of. I mean, yes, we can say that she's no more selfish than others, but I think she just was exceptionally so. And I drew a lot of parallels between her and the AdMechs, and the book that you keep memory holding. God, totally lost the name of it, but it was written by Adrian Tchaikovsky.
Oh my gosh, Day of Ascension. We were just talking about this today. To give you an idea of how effectively I have memory hold this book, I think it was Raptor was talking about how, like, this reminded him of the AdMech in there, and my first thought was, the Mechanicus was in that book? Memory hold, but the book that you have memory hold, we each have one, is, oh shit, now the title is totally lost me. The Imperial Fist, Psyker one with the Gene Stealers.
Oh yeah.
That's the book that it's Imperial.
I didn't
something
remember
is
Gene
actually
Stealers were in it. I just
That's
remember
what
there's an Imperial Fist librarian book that I don't remember anything about.
That would be the one.
Yeah.
Yes, that is the one that you have totally memory hold.
Yes.
So we both that we were like, what? We've read this? Anyways, continue. Yes, Day of Ascension.
Yes, Dave
If I remember
Ascension.
the
Just the
name.
fact that these Mechanicus were so selfish in how they were treating other people. These people were embracing the freaking gene stealers to revolt. That's how bad shit was. So
That is what that book was about.
yes.
I remember this now.
'Cause it's
I don't remember a single thing about it, but I do remember the overarching plot.
It was
that gene
it
stealers
was
were more better.
a Skitari farming planet, and they kind of abused their livestock, and
Yep.
they were kind of being fat nobles. And yeah, so, and in many ways, like, she's very similar to this in that she's just being very selfish. And this is about my needs and what I want to do. People be damned. She was never concerned with how many thousands of people they lost. Where did we learn that from? Ron Bow and the humans.
Which, okay, going back to that, because I know we talked a little bit about them as like parts that stood out. Were you invested in them, and were they necessary for this book?
I don't know about necessary. Honestly, I think you probably could have taken all those parts out, and I don't think anything would have changed very much, to be honest. It would have made the battle on the Eldari planet like really boring, but
Right.
but they were the only thing I was invested in.
I think so. Here's the thing that's somewhat funny, and I would actually argue it's Fist of the Imperium, by the way, is the name of that book that I couldn't think of the name of. Here's what I would argue that makes them such an interesting, necessary piece of this book. You have the Adeptus Mechanicus, who are, on one hand, very cold and calculating, right? But then we're seeing all of this politicking and this drama between them, right? You have Sherax, who is shunning her companions, and then you have all of these different people who are moving and doing their own things, and like just, and they're all acting kind of selfishly, and some of them are trying to act nobly, but then there's also like, there's a lot of feelings going on with them. And then you have the humans who, yep, also nearly got killed. They're just on this ship. They're on a ship with people who don't really care about them. The AdMech does not care really about them per se. They care about them as a resource, but not like about them.
Right.
And yeah, they're just trucking on. They're just trucking on and doing what they're told and serving their purpose. And, you have Edgar who has his own personal journey, but the rest of them, they're just being good Vostroyans.
Mm-hmm. Go where duty calls.
Exactly. So in a lot of ways, you have this drama mess over here, right, in the Adeptus Mechanicus, and then the humans represent like this neat, orderly survival faction. If I had to choose which of these two should have been in charge.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. So you're almost saying like, so we have like this order with this emotional chaos with a bunch of people who are supposed to be not emotional versus the humans that are supposed to be emotional. That's interesting.
Yeah, and you have the humans who are doing their job. They actually have not forgotten their duty, and they are behaving in the way that they're supposed to. And yeah, I mean, they have their drinking and their games and all of this kind of stuff, right? But like,
I mean, they're
just
literally along for the ride. Like,
yeah, literally along for the ride.
No choice in any of this. They were just taken, and they are here now, and this is what's happening.
Yeah. And by God, they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get the impression that any of them are like, nope, we're Imperial Guardsmen and this is our job. This is what we're supposed to do. Like, they feel more focused and put together than the Adeptus Mechanicus. And that is not at all what you would expect. Like, if anything, yeah, it should have been the opposite of that. And so I think they were a really nice counterbalance to the AdMech, who have all of these feelings and drama. Gasps and Baneric.
With a faction that's not supposed to be emotional at all.
So in a lot of ways, going back to one of the concepts that I was talking about, I really liked that. I like the concept, and I really enjoy this when we get to see, yep, the Adeptus Mechanicus are just like any other faction in the Imperium, right? Like, you could have replaced all of the Adeptus Mechanicus characters with Inquisitors, with Administratum, with Ministorum. Like, you could have replaced with any of like the super political human groups. No difference. You would have bought all of it, right? They're just as dysfunctional. They're just as
Right.
petty and conniving, and they don't realize it. That's the only difference with them, is that, like, the Inquisition for sure knows it, right? I think the Administratum probably knows it. The Ministorum knows that they're political, right? I don't think, like, they kind of know amongst themselves, like, okay, here's the politics that are at play here. But I think if you were to tell them, like, God, you are the enemies, your own worst enemies right now with all of this, they would just be like, no, don't be weird. I have this huge rant about the Adeptus Mechanicus. I actually really like them. I liked the concepts at play here. I just didn't like the execution of it, because I was with you. Oh man, some of the sections were so dull.
Like, I really wasn't, I was bored up until the space tree. And I was like, okay, I kind of see where this is going. But then when the doubling down kept happening, I was like, oh my God, this is so bad. I can't deal with this.
Yeah. It was frustrating. I wanted to say,
And
I went into this book.
100% admit, I do not like the AdMechs. I'm not an AdMech person. I had a weakness with Horus Heresy with Titan Death. But I'm not an AdMech person. And so when I see the AdMechs acting like this, like in this one, Day of Ascension, Storm of Iron, I think that was it, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Storm of Iron. I'm like, I can't stand you. Or Vaults of Terra. I can't stand you people.
That's a good example too. Do you know, I hate to say this, but do you know who did this entire concept better, of the politicking and the irrational decisions and the quest for knowledge at any cost? Graham McNeil, as if you can see them over there. Graham McNeil's Forges of Mars series. They did it better. It was a little bit more compelling. Actually, a lot of bit more compelling. I really like the Forges of Mars series. It's some of McNeil's strongest writing outside of his Uriel Ventress Hansu universe that he has. I
Well,
almost forget that he writes
I
things
did
that aren't
enjoy,
Uriel
like,
Ventress.
he wrote Mechanicus in the Horus Heresy, or Mechanicum in the Horus Heresy, and that was really good, because
He knows
I got a
the
really good
Mechanicus.
sense of what was lost on Mars.
I think he knows and likes the Mechanicus.
Mm-hmm.
From the way that he writes them, even in Storm of Iron, I think he likes the Mechanicus. I think he likes their sort of oilier qualities that they have.
Right.
But I feel him on that. I totally feel him on that. This book, and I went into this book wanting to like it so much. It's been a really long time since we had a really good Adeptus Mechanicus book. I was really on board with it. Didn't love the execution. Again, loved parts, but not the whole.
I would like him to go back to writing crime stories.
Crime stories are fun.
I think he does those very well.
Do you know what I would like? More crime novels.
There's that too.
Remember when the crime series was going to be big?
Yes.
Pepperidge Farms remembers.
I'm waiting for my sequel to Bloodlines.
Oh my God, I want my Bloodline sequel. We can spend the whole book being like, why can't you just have an affair? Like a good, decent person. Instead of a cult. Anyways, our next book, though, I am pretty excited for, believe it or not, despite my sort of mixed feelings on
And
the
it's
first
a hefty
one.
boy.
God, it's a hefty boy. Above and Beyond by Denny Flowers. It's another Lucille von Shard movie. or movie book. I'm seeing movie because it looks like such a propaganda movie poster, right?
Right.
Even though we both agreed the way that they drew her scar, it looks like she has a snidely whiplash, like
She
she's gonna
does.
start twirling her
Hmm.
mustache over here.
Yep. I'm never
I do
gonna.
like it.
I'm never gonna unsee that. It's just gonna be a mustache.
Totally is. But I like her. So I'm excited for the book. I think it'll be interesting to see. We didn't really love her character, but we liked the story around her. So we'll see.
Oh,
Maybe.
the story in the world was fascinating, and I did like Denny Flowers' the Red Gobbo book. So
Yes. Yes. Which, oh, I forgot. We also have to work in a Red Gobbo book at some point. This the hot like I how was Thanksgiving this week?
I don't know, but it is. So,
It is, and I'm not cool with it. I'll just tell you that much right now.
yeah, because I can't even look at my December calendar. Like Sean made me earlier, and I was just like, I can't because it's already like every weekend's like booked
Same.
because that's how this goes every year. And every
Yep,
year I get mad at myself for getting booked, but I can't stop
be-
it.
between band and hockey, every single weekend is booked. So I'm really excited for it.
No,
Send help.
for me it's archery and test prepping.
Oh. And then it's the holiday.
Yes.
Oh my god. Um yeah, it's literally something every weekend. Oh my god, we just need to get to the last 2 weeks of the year when I have time off. Anyways, do you want to take us out, Carrie?
Yes, I sure will. So you've listened to the Warhammer 40k book club episode regarding Dominion Genesis by Jonathan D. Beer. Please join us next time for Above and Beyond by Denny Flowers. You know, every time I see the Above and Beyond, I know it's not the same thing, but the Air Force theme song plays in my head. It's not called Above and Beyond, but it has like, the wild blue yonder. Anyway, we are an unofficial book club and not affiliated with the Black Library or any of its affiliates. You can find both the vidcast and podcast on our website, WH40kbookclub.com. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, give a review, and all those things to the vidcast on YouTube and Spotify, or the podcast anywhere you get podcasts. And come join our Discord. It's fun in there. Sometimes we get really passionate, but that just makes it even more fun. So, and sometimes people share with their painting. It's always exciting to see the talents of other people. Not me. I'm not sharing my stuff because I don't paint. But I like looking at everybody else's stuff though. So, and our site also has articles about adventures and reading other Warhammer 40k books and short stories outside the book club books. I am going to pick up Siege of Terra at the beginning of the year. So I've been asked about it. Like, it is coming. Just let me have a small break. I read probably one of the longest series I think I've ever read. The Horus Heresy. I don't think I've ever read a series that's gone that long. Okay, the Sweet Valley Twins, the Sweet Valley High books do not count. Okay.
What about the Babysitters Club?
I didn't read that one. Oh, but there was Nancy Drew. I did read a crap ton of Nancy Drew.
Oh my god, at least. Oh, and then don't forget the Christopher Pike books.
Oh, yeah.
And oh yeah, no, we did our. But remember those books were all like.
Yeah,
I think the longest Babysitters Club book was like that
so
big.
probably the longest series that I've read that wasn't a young adult book. That's fair. That's fair. So please stay a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. So please stay a while and read from a crag. All right. I know I'm posting this after Thanksgiving, but to our American friends, hope you had a very happy Thanksgiving. And to our international friends, happy Thanksgiving to you too. Go eat some turkey on our behalf.
I saw somebody on Instagram today called Turkey the LaCroix of meats. And I've never read something so true in my life. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.